So doesn't anybody in that country care about what's going on, you may ask? Doesn't anyone know all these facts? Sure they do, I would reply. Here is the 2006 issue of the Kharkivshina magazine. The 5th page contains the following information. The regional ecological rating of the Kharkiv region 2005, the blacklist. The blacklist of the annual regional ecological rating. Nature is sold and bought. The extreme rejection of the ideas promoting nature protection and the recreational value of biological resources. First position, Valentin Manoilo, the Kharkiv Regional Council Deputy, the absolute leader of the ecological rating blacklist, for turning the idea of the Kharkiv region forest destruction into the regional program. Second position, Dmitry Ovcharenko, the head of the Regional Forestry Administration. He is Mr. Manoilo's worthy successor on this position. In 2005, he managed quick mass fellings in the forests of the region, even during the summer period. He also keeps blocking the ecological network development program in the region. Third position, Igor Kapusnik, the head of the State Committee of Ecology and Natural Resources in the Kharkiv region. The most characteristic features: formalism, ineffective management work, indifference to the creation of the Nature Preservation Fund objects. Fourth position, Vladimir Servulia, the deputy head of the Regional Administration of Environmental Protection in the Kharkiv region, the head of the Forest Inspection of the Kharkiv region. He is a person who got into the Regional Administration of Environmental Protection by pure chance. His approach to forests is exclusively as to the source of raw materials. The control over the hunting management is totally absent. These people, Ovcharenko, Kapusnik, Servulia, Popov, are just underlings, but they know what, where and how much. And unfortunately, the time when these traditions will be eradicated is nowhere close. Unfortunately, such outrage is blossoming in the whole of Ukraine. Maybe our forests do not need any certification. Maybe international sanctions should be applied to our country for destroying the natural forest complexes.
Aerospace filming shows that the forest-covered areas of Ukraine are constantly decreasing. This concerns the Carpathian Mountains area the most. According to the same aerospace filming data, the forest-covered area of the Carpathians decreased twice or even 3 times in comparison with its original size. It is a simply disastrous process, which is very difficult to stop. It caused huge financial damage for the local people and destruction to the environment that could not be compensated.
Mr. Prince, there are no forest territories in the Kharkiv region where the clear fellings are not conducted, which means that by the system within which framework you conduct the FSC certification, there are no reserved territories at all. What 5% of reserved areas may there be talk about? Another thing to take note of. All the protected areas in the Gute Forestry Enterprise, the Forest Wildlife Reserve Vladimirovka Dacha, Botanical Wildlife Reserves Gute, Sharovka, Murafa, the protected nature objects Koziivka 1, Koziivka 2, Murafa Dacha are monoprotected systems. Hunting is not limited in any way. The rare wild birds' nests are not protected, and there is absolutely no monitoring of the species belonging to the red list. The only protection is the ban on certain kinds of fellings, and you have seen how these limitations are obeyed. But let us at last come back to the certification issue. Let us think calmly and clearly what forest the certification will allow to get to Europe. Oak trees? Well, these are the last patches of the natural forests in the east of Ukraine, where the really Arachthonous bicinoses still remain. These bicinoses need to be carefully preserved. They keep vanishing dramatically, very much due to the barbarous treatment of nature by forest enterprises. There is no need to linger over the maps to understand that in the east of Ukraine, the floodplain and upland oakeries have the exclusive water protective function. And it is exactly oak trees that in our harsh climatic conditions regenerate with very big difficulties, which travel to Europe through Lithuania and Poland. 40% of all the oak harvesting. And instead of closing these criminal channels, we want to open the gate even wider. Or do you want our precious oak forest to be turned into young planted forest? But in general, Mr. Prince, I'm beginning to understand you. It is a shame watching those marvelous oak trees moving away somewhere else. and there might be a great desire to get the rest of them, as 92% of timber in the Netherlands is imported from other countries. No, we also want to buy pine trees, you may remark. We saw how you have turned it into a culture, and it's cultivated like wheat. It would be difficult to object to you, because our forests really began to look like big fields lately, because of the fellings of the autochthonous pine barrens. On the other hand, it would be strange to hear such words from a Dutch person. The country that, as it seems to me, treats the problem of global warming more seriously than many others, plans to lessen the carbon dioxide emissions into the atmosphere on one hand, and, on the other hand, the same country plans to cut down the evergreen woodland in Europe, especially the one that is on the southern geographic border of its areal. Consuming the carbon dioxide is the process that reverses emissions of this greenhouse gas into the atmosphere. And it is exactly the evergreen forests, including our Scotch pine forest, which consume the carbon dioxide all year round.
Our country also signed the Kyoto Protocol. It is an agreement that foresees the responsibilities of countries to lessen the industrial emissions of carbon dioxide and other greenhouse gases into the atmosphere. One of the aspects of this Kyoto Agreement is the commitment of countries to increase voluntarily the amount of forest areas that would be able to perform the function of consuming the greenhouse gases, and thus lessen the emissions of these gases into the atmosphere. In this case, Ukraine claimed its policy of lessening the greenhouse emissions, increasing the areas of the forest stands, caring about and protecting the Nature Preservation Fund territories, increasing the amount of the reserved areas. Despite these claims that were made at the highest level, now we see that it was only a declaration.
Somehow, the facts of using succulent plants to tighten the sands in Tunisia and Algeria and the industrial wood harvesting in Ukraine do not fit together. If we put it more simply, moreover, the time has run out. The forest that crosses the border of Ukraine is the forest that has been stolen from the Ukrainian people by a small group of criminals, and purchasing stolen goods is considered a crime in all civilized countries. And Holland should think 10 times before agreeing to help fell those forests once and for all. But it is time for us also to think about what's happening. Maybe the time has come to think better of certain things. A year ago, Viktor Yushchenko, the president of Ukraine, wanted to fire the State Committee of Forestry due to the disastrous situation in this sector, and most importantly, because the foresters did not fulfill their nature conservation responsibilities. Unfortunately, he hasn't had time to do it yet. However, we need urgent and radical measures to be taken locally. I realize that the regional governor Arsen Avakov would not be able to stop the fellings, no matter how much he desires to. However, I'd like to offer a piece of advice for him. All the external economic contracts concerning the export of timber out of the region, roundwood and sawnwood, that are valid now, and the ones which will be hastily signed in the near future, should be considered invalid until the area of the Nature Preservation Fund objects in the Kharkiv region reaches the European standards, both in quality and quantity. However, in order to really save the forest, urgent changes to the current legislation are needed.